Hello, hello, my lovelies. This is Nini, and you're watching my channel. Today, we're going to explore my thoughts and opinions on some of the worst BLs of 2024. After quite a bit of careful contemplation, thorough comparison, and a lot of arguing with myself, I have finalized a list of 10 BLs that I think were some of the more terrible additions to the boys' love genre. From awful and convoluted writing and mediocre acting, to terrible directing, to plots that had holes so big you could drive a semi-truck through, and technical faux pas worse than any college film project, some of these on the list come off as quintessentially nothing more than an overreaching cash grab, made solely because they could, wherein even most easygoing fans find themselves pushing through to the end on spite alone, or worse, dropping them altogether. Now, disclaimer. While I do not particularly like flaming a show officially unless it's truly deserved, I will accept that my opinions do not necessarily universally reflect the thoughts and viewpoints of the fandom as a whole. So do please take my opinions with a grain of salt. The requirements for consideration for this list are based on when and where each show's start and end date falls. To be fair to the list, any show that aired in part or in full during 2024 qualifies and may be included. With that being said, if you like what I do here and want to see more from me about the World BL, entertainment, gaming, and various other topics, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below whether you agree with the list, what the worst shows of 2024 for you were, and whether or not some of these shows should be ranked higher or lower on the list. So, let's get started. Number 10, Dead Friend Forever. Billed from the start as a BL, Dead Friend Forever's marketing pushed the narrative that the latest addition to the BL zeitgeist from Beyond Cloud would offer an engaging plot full of mystery, romance, and horror. While the mystery was there, the horror plot was rather convoluted and mediocre. The attempt at realistic special effects and horror makeup was elementary at best, and the writing was often predictable and dull. But with all that aside, Dead Friends Forever's biggest issue was the lack of a real romantic BL plot. Yes, there were queer characters, but in no way did any romance take even a minimalistic piece of the main stage. It was background fodder, sacrificed to the wannabe horror gods. In the eyes of many fans, including myself, Dead Friends Forever was nothing more than a show deliberately milking the BL industry and audience reviews with absolutely no payoff worth remembering. Personally, I gave the show a 3 out of 10. Number 9, 1,000 Years Old. The first of 2 vampire BLs on this list, unfortunately. 1,000 Years Old was a show that not many took seriously, mainly because its trailers gave audiences everything they needed to know about the show in just a few short minutes. The plot itself could have been interesting had they cut out most of the so-called subplot about the blood tofu stand and chosen something more grounded. The actors did a good job with what they were given, but that, in all honesty, isn't saying much. Had the writers focused more on the fact that Pun was a vampire and had his nature conflict with having feelings for a human, the whole show would have felt more realistic. Instead, the writers chose to go full comedy and downplayed the romance to a detrimental degree. 1,000 Years Old was one of the shows that I had thoroughly been looking forward to since I'm a big vampire girly, but in the end, it was a complete and utter disappointment. A solid 4 out of 10. Number 8, My Love Mix-Up. High adaptation. Solely on this list because I felt like that it was completely unnecessary. My Love Mix-Up was practically a shot-for-shot remake of the original Japanese adaptation. Now, while I am a pretty big fan of Fourth and Gemini, I couldn't really take this show seriously. It may have been a case of bad casting, maybe Fourth and Gemini just weren't a good fit, or the fact that the writing added nothing significantly new to the original source material, or that it just didn't translate well from Japanese to Thai, but all in all, it felt even flatter than previous iterations. I am not, mind you, a complete purist, nor do I feel that a show is not a proper adaptation if it doesn't follow the story to the letter, but for My Love Mix-Up, it felt like it was missing some of the simplest nuances the Japanese adaptation nailed perfectly. All in all, the show just wasn't as good as I expected and earned a mediocre 5.5 out of 10 for me. Number 7, Only Boo. Now, I might actually get flamed for my opinion on Only Blue, but I stand by the fact that this didn't land as well as it should have. The premise was interesting. A starry-eyed teenager with delusions of grandeur in the entertainment industry gets booted back to the boonies to learn more responsibility, only to fail miserably and end up sponging off a local who takes pity on him, leading to the pair falling in love and navigating the complexities of their relationship while trying to deal with outside influences. Sounds interesting, right? I thought so too, until I got about halfway through the show, and it was just beginning to monotonously drag. Only Boo then became another addition to the list of shows that took a downturn with a quickness right after the relationship was solidified. I found myself forcing myself to finish the show outright. So it's definitely a middle of the road 5 out of 10 drama for me. The only reason why it gets a middle of the road is because the two main actors and their couple dynamics was very cute and adorable, and they had really great chemistry. But the plot and the dialogue was sometimes very much a chore to get through. Number 6. Oh my god, Vampire. Oh my god, what? The second of the Vampire BLs on this list, Oh My God, Vampire, was an absolutely horrendous show with terrible dialogue, uneven plot, unlikable characters, and a slew of world building that was just ridiculous. Given that this show was billed as a comedy, I expected some silliness. Add Long Frank, who are notorious for choosing really bad scripts, into the mix, and everything Oh My God Vampire offered was completely par for the course. I went into the show hoping that Long Frank would actually do a BL that was worthy of their talents, and walked away feeling even more disappointed than ever before. Oh My God Vampire was a complete waste of time. My time, the audience's time, and the actor's time on every level, and without a doubt earned a measly 2 out of 10 for me. Number 5. Kiseki in Tokyo. What can I say about Kiseki in Tokyo? Oh, I know. Welcome to the Travel Channel. Seriously, Kiseki in Tokyo was about as good as a promotional video for tourists. Quite literally. The entire plot revolves around two tourists visiting Tokyo, meeting a couple of other tourists, and having romantic trysts with each other. All between them visiting the sights and sounds and lovely destinations of Tokyo. This show felt like a commercial, like some travel company had dumped a buttload of money on the desk of some producer and said, "Travel vlog, but make it BL so all the fangirlies will want to go to Japan." Like we don't want to already. As this intention became entirely the main focus, the romances, if you want to call them that, took a serious backseat at times, leaving me sitting there going, can we just move along, please? Kiseki in Tokyo was definitely one of those shows that will never end up on my rewatch list, for obvious reasons. It gets a 3.5 out of 10, and the only reason why it gets any points at all is because Tokyo is a gorgeous place. That's it. End of story. Full stop. Number 4. Love is like a cat. So I'm totally going to get flamed for this, and I'm sorry. It was one of my most anticipated BLs of 2024. Love is Like a Cat was a show that I really hoped beyond hope would be good. Why? Because it was rumored that it was going to be the very last BL that Mew ever did. As a fan of the Mew Golf ship, I was all in to give my support as per usual, only to be faced with a show that was so beneath Mew's talent that it was a serious disappointment. Putting aside the cognitive dissonance between the effectuality of setting up a show wherein the two main leads don't speak each other's language, and being heavily reliant on in-ear translators for every interaction, the show's premise was completely shallow. The plot was boring, the romance was unbelievable and flat. The chemistry between the main leads was so lukewarm that I found myself focusing more attention on the show's secondary characters, which weren't that great either. Love is Like a Cat ended up not being worth the hype, and an absolutely poor exit from the BL world for Mew. It's a 3.5 out of 10, and that's being generous. Number 3, Playboy the Series. Out of every show on this list, Playboy the Series was one of the most horrendously written shows I have ever watched in my life. The story, if you want to call it a story, was a complete mess, terribly written, full of plot holes, bad acting, and unbelievably bad direction, and questionable decisions that made me feel like I was losing IQ points minute by minute. But the biggest issue with this show was the fact that it was anywhere near what a typical BL normally is. Now, we always have some nuances, and everybody likes to push the envelopes. But Playboy went way too far. More adult entertainment than a legitimately interesting show with lots of nuance. Playboy was all the racy parts of shows like Only Friends, Bed Friends, and Ken Porsche turned up to 1,000,000. So much so that there is no reason for them aside from pure titillation. The show was so bad that even as a bona fide anti when it comes to purity culture and dumbing down physical romance, I had to take breaks and walk away for a few minutes. The graphic nature of all the NC scenes were so in your face that it honestly made you feel like you were watching something illegal. As far as I'm concerned, Playboy the series was absolutely made to make money. It wasn't there to do good things for the genre, to make people more interested in queer romances. It was there to titillate everybody and make money. And for that reason and that reason alone, or those many or many reasons, yeah, it's a 2.5 out of 10 for me. Number 2, addicted heroin. Now here's where we get into a deliberate field of weeds. Up front, I want to say that I am a big fan of the original book and have been a huge proponent of us finally getting a good adaptation that actually follows the book. Fans of Addicted have been chomping at the bit since 2016 to finally, and I mean finally, get a version where we get the whole story. Not half of it, not a version so bromance washed that it thumbed its nose at canon or censored the hell back beyond recognition. So when I say that I was super excited and wary when the Thai adaptation was announced, I want everyone to know that I did not in any way take it lightly. I had hoped that since it was coming from Thailand, we would get the real versions of Bai Liu-yen and Gu-hai on screen, with all the drama, chaotic feelings, and problematic behaviors they were known for. And what we got instead was an unmitigated disaster of an adaptation. Swaths of the narrative had been completely changed or cut out. The main leads were barely a shell of their former selves. Their chemistry was barely palpable, and all the nuances of the addicted storyline were lost in the process. I was thoroughly disappointed from beginning to end and couldn't help but wonder what the producers were actually thinking. Did they honestly believe that the fans of the original story would be even remotely happy with what they had to offer? Because if they did, they might want to rethink their career path. Addicted Heroin was an absolute bomb for me and gets a well-deserved 2 out of 10. Number 1, Love in the Air, Japanese version. No, 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 just no. Absolutely not. No, throw it in the bin. What a piece of hot garbage. Well, there's a hot take for you. I will never understand what in the world these people were thinking when they decided to readapt Love in the Air. The original Thai adaptation, released in 2022, was an uncontested hit, springboarding both Bossa Nol and Fort and Pete to superstardom in a blink of an eye. Its narrative, dialogue, characters, cinematography, music, and undeniable heat practically lit the BL industry on fire. And then they went and decided, oh, hey, let's see if we can milk this story for a little more cash. I get it. Money's money, and there's always room for more. But what we got was so beyond the pale that I spent every week ripping this show to shreds. Now, I'm not going to point at the Japanese actors and accuse them of ruining the show. They did what they were directed to, what the script told them to do, and wore what the wardrobe department dared to put on them. It's not their fault, for sure, full stop. But, oh my lord, I have not, in my decades of consuming queer media, ever seen an adaptation miss the mark this hard. The win was right there in front of them, yet they aimed for Jupiter. That's how badly they stepped in it. Every bit of the chemistry in the original story and the Thai adaptation was roughed up, tossed into a river, left to float for 10 days, then drowned in bleach, eventually ending up so unbelievably stale, flat, and awful that there was no way to justify its existence both in universe and out. Add to that the quite literal shot-for-shot breakdown of the plot, with only the tiniest of changes, And you have an adaptation that, without a doubt, obliterated any possibility that it could ever be taken seriously. Hands down, Love in the Air Japan was an adaptation that no one wanted, no one asked for, and no one will want to rewatch no matter how much the producers want us to. For the first time in my life, and in my decades as a fan of BL, I am forced to bring down the hammer of judgment and declare my very first 0 out of 10 TV show. This was absolutely unnecessary and just a complete waste of time, money, absolute trash. And there we go. That's my top 10 worst BLs of 2024 list. All my thoughts and opinions and my animated self going on tangents. But yeah, I know I probably might have upset a bunch of people with my list, but hey, we've all got opinions, and these are mine. If you disagree with me, please feel free to drop down in the comments and tell me what you thought of these shows and if I hit the mark or if I was way out of left field. And if you like what I do here and want to see more from me, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and click the notification bell so you get heads up every time I post a new video. And thanks for watching.